My name is Naomi. I am 40 years old, and I serve as the chair of the Higher Board of Ethics and Compliance. My life's work is not merely a career, it is a structural renovation of the human condition. I exist to dismantle the archaic, malfunctioning systems of the past, specifically the erratic and destructive nature of the patriarchal legacy, and replace them with a seamless, high-definition control cage, where behavior is no longer a matter of whim, but a matter of mathematical necessity. I am currently sitting in my living room, though living room is a term far too organic for this space. It is a chamber of calibrated stillness. The walls are a shade of white that does not exist in nature, a color synthesized to reduce ocular strain while maintaining a high level of mental alertness. The air is filtered to remove 99% of all pollutants, including the scent of other people. Everything here is intentional. In my world, there are no accidents. There are only system failures and their subsequent remediations. To understand me, one must understand the concept of the legacy bug. For centuries, the human race has operated on a corrupted operating system. Men, in their biological and social dominance, are the primary carriers of this bug. Their history is one of noise, blood, and illogical expansion. I view every man as a debt that history has yet to collect. They're inherited errors, and my role at the higher board is to ensure that these errors are quarantined, re-educated, or, if necessary, deleted from the social fabric. We do not use the word punishment at the board, we use sanitation. We clean the world of its irrationality. This philosophy extends into the most intimate corners of my existence. I do not believe in mercy. Mercy is a patriarchal poison, a sentimental loophole designed to allow the guilty to remain relevant. To forgive is to admit that the system has failed to be absolute. In my house and in my heart, if one chooses to use such a primitive metaphor, there is only the grid. Julian, minor of 3 years, is currently sitting across from me. Or rather, he was sitting across from me until he moved to the window. I am watching his biometric data on my retinal overlay. His heart rate has increased by 6 beats per minute. His cortisol levels are rising. He is experiencing unstructured thought, a state I find deeply inefficient and potentially dangerous. Julian, I say, my voice a perfect, level frequency. Your cognitive output seems to be drifting. We should engage in a collaborative synchronization exercise. The new draft for the Social Harmony Initiative needs a secondary perspective on the enforcement of microaggression protocols. He doesn't look back. He continues to stare at the garden, a garden where every leaf is pruned according to a geometric algorithm. I was just thinking, Naomi, he says. His voice has a tremor, a tiny crack in the glass. Thinking is a solitary act that often leads to deviation, I respond. I stand up, my movements fluid and economized. I do not waste energy on unnecessary gestures. Collective action is the only way to ensure alignment. We have a shared calendar for a reason. Every 15-minute block of your evening is allocated for mutual growth and systemic reinforcement. You are currently 4 minutes into a block that should be dedicated to our joint review of the Ethics Handbook. I just wanted a moment of quiet, he whispers. Quiet is a void, I tell him, walking toward him. I can smell the faint, salty scent of his skin, a biological reality I have tolerated because he serves as a necessary case study in my domestic laboratory. And voids are where the old habits creep back in. If you are left alone with your thoughts, you will inevitably regress to the primal, unoptimized version of yourself. I cannot allow that. For your own benefit, and for the integrity of this unit, we must do something together. Now, this is how I maintain the structure. By filling every crack, every silence, every breath with the weight of the collective goal. I am the architect of his day, the curator of his mind. I have built a world where there is no space for the self, because the self is where the rot begins. At the Higher Board of Ethics and Compliance, we have perfected the art of the digital shroud. It is a system I designed myself, an algorithmic executioner that monitors the digital footprint of every high-risk individual, mostly men who have shown a history of non-compliance with the new order. When a deviation is detected, the shroud begins to wrap around them. Their credit access is throttled. Their professional certifications are flagged for reevaluation. Their social connections receive automated warnings about ideological contamination. I have spent years training young radicals like Abby and Dana to wield these tools. I don't see them as daughters or even as ments. They're extensions of my will. They're ideological limbs that I move across the board of the city. I remember Abby coming to me, crying because she had to sanitize her own brother after he was participating in an underground debating society that questioned the board's authority. "He's my blood, Naomi," she had said, her face a mess of biological weakness. I didn't hug her. I didn't offer a tissue. I simply looked at her through my data glass and said, blood is a prehistoric concept. Compliance is the only family that matters. If he is a bug in the system, you're the debugger. Do your job, or you will be categorized as a legacy enabler. She did it. She wiped his digital existence within 48 hours. Now, she is one of my most effective agents. She understands that mercy is the friction that slows the engine of progress. Julian is still staring out the window. I can see the tension in his shoulders. The trapezius muscles are locked. We should go for a walk, I suggest. A synchronized walk. I will set the pace on our haptic feedback bands. We will walk at exactly 4.8 kilometers per hour, breathing in unison. It will help recalibrate your nervous system. I don't want to walk, Naomi, he says, finally turning to look at me. His eyes are tired. They lack the crystalline clarity of mine. I just want to sit here. Alone. Alone, I repeat the word as if it's a foreign dialect. Solitude is the precursor to dissent. When you say you want to be alone, what you are actually saying is that you want to hide your thoughts from the grid. Why would you want to hide, Julian? Do you have something to conceal? Is there a legacy error manifesting in your consciousness? It's not an error. It's just being human, he says, his voice rising. I record the decibel level. It is an act of aggression. Humanity is a work in progress, I say coldly. It is a raw material that we are refining. Your desire for aloneness is a symptom of the patriarchal impulse to possess a private space where the rules do not apply. But the rules apply everywhere. There is no outside to the system I have built. There is only the inside and the void. If you are not with me, if we are not doing something together, then you are drifting toward the void. I move closer, invading his personal space with a calculated precision. I want him to feel the weight of my presence. I want him to understand that there is no corner of this house or his life that is not under my jurisdiction. I have archived every conversation we have ever had. I have mapped his preferences, his triggers, his weaknesses. I know him better than he knows himself because I have the data, and he only has his feelings. Let's play a game, I say. An ideological audit. I will name a historical figure, and you will identify their primary systemic failure within 3 seconds. It will be a good exercise for your processing speed. No, he says. He moves toward the door. I'm going to the library. The library is scheduled for tomorrow at 1400 hours, I remind him. Today, this hour is for interpersonal alignment. If you go to the library now, you are breaking the protocol. You are introducing chaos into the schedule. Then let there be chaos, he shouts. I don't flinch. My heart rate remains a steady 60 beats per minute. Chaos is just another word for failure, I say. If you cannot manage your own time within the parameters of the unit, then the board will have to intervene. Do you want me to file a domestic noncompliance report, Julian? Do you want to be sanitized? He freezes. He knows what that means. It means his bank accounts will freeze. His smart car will refuse to open its doors. His workplace, a mid-level data processing center, will receive a notification that his ethics score has dropped below the threshold of employability. I hold his life in my hands, not because I love him, but because I have designed a world where someone like me must hold the lives of people like him. He sinks into a chair. Fine, he whispers. What do we do? We will review the social credit adjustments for the 3rd quarter, I say, sitting down next to him and opening a holographic display. And we will do it together. I want to hear your thoughts on the proposed penalties for unauthorized silence in public spaces. As we work, I watch him. I see the way he stares at the screen without seeing it. He is physically present, but mentally, he is trying to find a hole in the net. He doesn't understand that the net is made of him. Every time he breathes, every time he blinks, he is generating data that reinforces my control. I am not just his nerve, I am his atmosphere. The days in our home follow a rhythmic, unbreakable pattern. To an outsider, it might look like a life of extreme discipline. To me, it is the only way to prevent the collapse of civilization. My work at the board has taught me that if you give people an inch of freedom, they will use it to build a cage for someone else. I simply decided that I would be the one holding the keys. I often think about my father. He was a man of moods. He would come home and demand peace and quiet, a phrase that I now recognize as a demand for a vacuum in which he could exercise his unchecked will. He would sit in his study for hours, drinking amber liquid and brooding over perceived slights from a world that was already beginning to move past his kind. He thought his silence was a fortress. I saw it for what it was, a hiding place for obsolescence. When I designed the Minerva protocols for the higher board, I made sure that silence was no longer a fortress. Under Minerva, silence is a data gap, and data gaps are automatically flagged for investigation. If a citizen is not actively communicating, consuming, or contributing, they are suspicious. We have sensors in the public parks that measure the density of conversation. If a group of people is too quiet for too long, a drone is dispatched to encourage engagement. Naomi Julian says, interrupting my reflections. It is 2100 hours. According to the schedule, this is the transition from productive engagement to restorative synchronization. I need to go for a walk. Alone. Just for 10 minutes. I need to breathe air that hasn't been cycled through your filters. I look at him. His face is pale. There are dark circles under his eyes. He is showing signs of systemic fatigue, a common condition in those who have not yet fully embraced the beauty of total transparency. The air outside is suboptimal, I say. The humidity is at 72%, and there is a high pollen count. Why would you want to subject your biological systems to such irregularity? Stay here. We can use this sensory immersion tank together. We can simulate a walk through a pristine, digital forest where the oxygen levels are perfectly balanced. I don't want a simulation, he snaps. He stands up, and for a moment, I see a flash of that old, patriarchal fire in his eyes. It's the look of a man who thinks he still has a territory to defend. I want something real. Even if it's dirty. Even if it's broken. I want to be somewhere where you aren't watching me. I am always watching, Julian. Not because I am a voyeur, but because I am an auditor. I am auditing our lives to ensure we don't fall into the traps of the past. If I stop watching, we stop being we. We become two separate entities, and separation is the first step toward conflict. Maybe conflict is better than this, he says, his voice low and dangerous. I stand up and walk to the console on the wall. With a few taps, I lock the front door. The electronic deadbolts engage with a satisfying, heavy thud. You're agitated, I say. Your logic centers are being bypassed by your amygdala. I am initiating a cool-down protocol. The house will transition to a soothing blue light, and the speakers will emit a frequency designed to lower heart rates. We will sit together on the sofa and practice rhythmic breathing for the next 20 minutes. You're locking me in, he asks, his voice trembling. I am securing the environment, I correct him. You are a vital component of this household. If you wander out in this state, you might perform an action that would permanently damage your ethics score. I am protecting your future. Now sit. Let us begin the breathing. He looks at the door, then at me. I see the moment his spirit breaks. It's a subtle shift, a slight drooping of the shoulders, a dullness that enters the eyes. It is the most beautiful thing I have ever seen. It is the sound of a system finally becoming stable. He sits down. We breathe. In for 4 seconds. Hold for 4 seconds. Out for 4 seconds. We are a machine, functioning in perfect unison. The weeks that follow are a triumph of optimization. Julian stops asking for alone time. He stops looking out the window for extended periods. He follows the schedule with a mechanical devotion that rivals my own. We do everything together. We cook meals where every ingredient is weighed to the gram. We watch educational narratives approved by the board, and we discuss their ideological implications for exactly 30 minutes afterward. We sleep in a bed that monitors our tossing and turning, providing a weekly report on our subconscious compatibility. I am at the height of my power. At the higher board, my Separatism 2.0 initiative is being rolled out across the city. We are creating optimized zones, entire neighborhoods where men are only allowed entry if they have a Class A compliance rating and are accompanied by a female sponsor. These zones are the cleanest, safest, and most productive areas in history. There is no crime because there is no privacy. There is no conflict because there is no ego. There is only the grid. Abby comes to my office one afternoon. She looks radiant, her uniform crisp and unyielding. The sanitation of the West District is complete, Naomi, she reports. We have relocated the last of the refractory elements to the re-education camps in the Outer Rim. The district is now 98% compliant. Excellent, I say. And the remaining 2%? They are being monitored, she says with a cold smile. They are quiet ones. They think they can hide in their own heads. But we've started using the new neuromapping drones. Even their thoughts are starting to show up on our sensors. Good. Thoughts are just unformed actions. We must prune them before they can take root. I return home that evening feeling a sense of profound accomplishment. I have built a world where the legacy bug is finally being erased. I enter the house, expecting the usual blue light welcome and the sight of Julian waiting for our evening synthesis. But the house is dark. This is a violation of protocol. The lights should be at 30% intensity. The air should be scented with focus-enhancing eucalyptus. I check my retinal overlay. Julian's biometric signal is gone. I don't feel fear. Fear is an irrational response to a lack of data. I feel a surge of intense curiosity. How did he bypass the sensors? How did he disconnect his haptic band? I walk through the sterile rooms, my footsteps echoing on the polished stone. Julian. I call out. My voice is still level, but there is a new sharpness to it. The schedule dictates that we should be beginning our nutritional integration now. You are out of alignment. I reach the bedroom. The bed is perfectly made. The monitors show a flat line of zero activity. On the vanity, I see his haptic band. He has cut it off. There is a small smear of blood on the white surface, a messy, biological reminder of his physical existence. Next to the band is a piece of paper. Paper. An archaic, non-traceable medium. I pick it up with 2 fingers, as if it were a contaminated specimen. I am leaving, it says. Asterisk, I don't want to be optimized anymore. I don't want to be a we. I just want to be alone, asterisk. I stare at the words. My mind, usually so fast, so efficient, hits a logic loop. I process the sentence, I am leaving, and I just want to be alone, as 2 separate, contradictory data points. In my system, leaving is a termination of a contract. It is a divorce, a separation, a move toward a different geographical coordinate. But being alone is a state of being. It is a lack of engagement. I try to reconcile them. If he is leaving the relationship, he is seeking another state of social organization. But he says he wants to be alone. If he is alone, he is not leaving toward anything. He is simply withdrawing. Error, I whisper to the empty room. The variable does not compute. I go to my main console and pull up the citywide tracking system. I input his biological signature. The map of the city glows before me, a web of millions of dots. But Julian is not a dot. He has disappeared into the dark zones, thus of the city, that have not yet been integrated into the Minerva grid. The slums. The ruins. The places where people still have moods and silence. He has chosen the void over the grid. I sit down in my perfectly calibrated chair. The house feels different now. The silence, which I once thought of as a controlled variable, now feels like a leak in the system. I have spent my entire life filling the moments of others, ensuring that no one, especially no man, is ever left to their own devices. I have been the constant, hovering presence, the voice that never stops, the eye that never blinks. And now, there is no one left to monitor. I try to initiate a collaborative exercise with the house computer, but it only responds with scripted phrases. I try to call Abby, but I realize I don't want to report this failure. If the architect of compliance cannot keep her own domestic unit in alignment, her authority will be questioned. I walk to the window. The garden is still perfect. The leaves are still pruned. But as I look at it, I feel a strange sensation in my chest. It isn't pain. It's a kind of thinning, as if I am becoming less dense. I have spent so much time being the we that I don't know how to be an I. I have defined myself by the control I exert over the legacy bugs around me. Without a bug to debug, what is the function of the debugger? I look at the paper again. I just want to be alone. I try to simulate what alone feels like for him. I sit in the dark. I try to let my thoughts drift. But my mind is a disciplined machine. It doesn't know how to drift. It only knows how to categorize. I categorize the chair. I categorize the air. I categorize the absence of Julian. The hours pass. The schedule for the evening flashes on my retinal overlay, a series of red notifications. 2200 hours. Joint reflection, missed. 2300 hours. Synchronized rest, missed. Midnight, system audit, missed. I am failing my own protocols. I am in a state of noncompliance. I realize then that I don't understand the difference between him leaving me and him wanting to be alone. To me, they're the same crime. To want to be away from the system is to want the system to die. Julian hasn't just left a woman, he has rejected a god. He has rejected the perfect, sterile future I am building. I feel a cold, sharp anger beginning to crystallize. It isn't the anger of a jilted lover. It is the anger of a scientist whose experiment has crawled off the table and escaped into the vents. He thinks he can be alone? There is no such thing as being alone in the world I have created. There is only being uncounted. I turn back to the console. My fingers fly across the glass. I begin to escalate his status. I don't just flag him. I declare him a systemic threat. I authorize the use of the high-altitude thermal scanners. I trigger the bounty protocols for the young radicals in the West District. I will find him. Not because I want him back, but because I cannot allow a piece of my world to exist outside of my sight. But as the search algorithms begin to hum, as the satellites pivot in the blackness above the city, a thought flickers in my mind, a tiny, unwanted spark of legacy thought. What if he is already gone? Not just from the house, but from the reality I've built? What if being alone is a place I can't reach with my sensors? I look at the screen. The search is at 0.04% completion. The city is vast and the dark zones are deep. For the first time in my life, I am faced with a lack of data that I cannot immediately remediate. I stand in the center of my white, silent living room. I am 40 years old. I am the chair of the higher board of ethics and compliance. I am the most powerful woman in the city. And I am standing in a house that is so clean, so perfect, and so empty that it feels like a tomb. I realize then that I have achieved my goal. I have created a space where there is no conflict, no noise, and no error. I have sanitized my life so thoroughly that there is nothing left to live in it. The screen on the wall flickers. A notification pops up. It's an automated system check from the board. User Naomi, your current environmental engagement level is at 0%. Are you experiencing a malfunction? I look at the prompt. I think about Julian, somewhere in the cold, messy, dark world, breathing unfiltered air and thinking thoughts that don't belong to anyone but him. I think about the word alone. I reach out and touch the screen. No, I say, my voice echoing in the sterile vacuum of the room. The system is functioning perfectly. But as I say it, the retinal overlay in my eyes begins to glitch. A small, red box appears in the corner of my vision. Asterisk error, compliance unit vacant. Access denied, asterisk. I sit on the floor, the cold, hard, perfect floor. I stay there as the lights cycle through their programs, from restorative blue to productive white. I am the architect of this world, and I am the only one left inside the cage. I have finally reached the ultimate state of my philosophy. I have separated myself from everything that is flawed, everything that is human, and everything that is other. I am alone. And for the first time in 40 years, I realize I have no idea what that means. I wait for the algorithm to tell me. I wait for the grid to give me a task. I wait for something we should be doing together. But the house is silent. The grid is silent. The only thing I can hear is the sound of my own heart, beating in a rhythm that no one else is synchronized to. It is a slow, steady, lonely sound. It is the sound of a legacy bug that I cannot delete. I close my eyes, and for a fleeting, terrifying second, I wish there was someone here to tell me what to do next. I wish there was a noise to break the silence. I wish there was a mistake to fix. But I have been too good at my job. I have cleaned the world so well that there is nowhere left to hide, not even from myself. I am Naomi. I am 40 years old. And I am the perfectly optimized ruler of a kingdom of nothing. The access denied sign continues to blink in my vision, a rhythmic, red heartbeat of failure. I stare at it until the sun begins to rise over my perfect, geometric garden, casting long, sharp shadows across the white floor. The shadows are the only things that aren't compliant. They stretch and distort, mocking the grid I have laid over the world. I watch them, unable to turn them off, unable to schedule them, unable to make them do something with me. I am still there when the board's morning check-in chime sounds. It is a bright, cheerful sound, designed to encourage a productive start to the day. I don't answer it. I simply stay on the floor, a single, unoptimized point in a world of perfect lines, wondering if Julian is somewhere, right now, looking at a shadow and feeling nothing at all. The chime sounds again. Persistent. Algorithmic. Naomi, the house voice says. It is time for your morning alignment. Shall we begin? I look at the empty space where a person used to be. Yes, I whisper, the word catching in my throat. Let's begin. But there is no we left. There is only the machine and its architect, trapped together in the silence of their own creation. The control cage is complete, and the door is locked from the inside. I have won. And as I sit in the center of my victory, I finally understand the aesthetic of the end. It isn't a bang or a whimper. It is simply a screen, glowing white in the dark, waiting for an input that will never come. I reach out one last time to the console, not to search for him, but to try and find a way to turn myself off. But the system is too robust. I built it to be indestructible. I built it to last forever. And so, I will sit here, in the perfect white light, for as long as the power stays on. I will be the guardian of the void. I will be the chair of a board with no members. I will be the architect of a silence so absolute that it is indistinguishable from death. And in the distance, somewhere beyond the walls of my sterile paradise, I imagine I can hear the sound of someone like Julian laughing in the dark, a messy, uncalibrated, beautiful sound that I will never, ever be able to archive. The sun climbs higher. The house grows brighter. The access denied sign blinks and blinks and blinks. And for the first time in my life, I don't try to fix the error. I just watch it. I watch it until my eyes burn, until the data blurs, until I am nothing more than a ghost in my own machine. I am Naomi. I am 40. I am alone. And the system is finally, perfectly, horribly complete.